Imagine this: Doctor Strange, the master of the mystic arts, suddenly loses control over time itself. Clocks freeze, events loop endlessly, and reality starts to unravel right before your eyes. The universe as we know it could collapse in ways even the Avengers couldn't stop. What would happen if the one person meant to protect time couldn't control it anymore? Today, we're diving deep into that chilling scenario, exploring the consequences, the chaos, and the hidden dangers that could tear the MCU apart. Let's start at the beginning. Doctor Strange is at the height of his power, fully aware of the consequences of manipulating time. He's faced cosmic threats before, but what if one spell, one miscalculation, caused him to lose his grip on the flow of time? When Strange uses the Time Stone, or in the post-Endgame MCU, his mastery of the time artsy usually has perfect control. He can rewind, pause, or loop events, often to save lives or prevent disaster. But losing control would turn every ability into a double-edged sword. Imagine trying to reverse one event, only to accidentally erase an entire city's timeline. The ripple effects could cascade across dimensions. One example, during the fight with Dormammu, Strange used the time loop to trap him endlessly. But what if that loop spiraled out of his control? Dormammu might have escaped into multiple dimensions at once. Or worse, the loop could have started to replicate itself indefinitely, destabilizing reality. At first, the changes might seem subtler, second too late, a choice slightly altered, but soon, the effects compound. Strange might notice familiar people behaving differently, the skyline of New York subtly shifting, and the Avengers sensing something is off without knowing why. Time slipping away wouldn't just affect our heroes, it would confuse the entire universe. Events that were once linear could begin to occur out of order. Battles might repeat, people could meet versions of themselves that never existed, and death itself could become meaningless. Time is the ultimate puzzle, and when the puzzle starts to fall apart, even a genius like Strange would struggle to make sense of it. Once Doctor Strange loses control over time, the chaos wouldn't just be a minor disturbance, it would ripple through the entire MCU. Imagine trying to fight Thanos when every moment is unpredictable. Battles could loop endlessly, allies might vanish mid-fight, and enemies could suddenly reappear after being defeated. Think about a scenario with Tony Stark and Spider-Man. Strange tries to rewind a battle to prevent Peter from being hurt, but instead, he accidentally rewinds a timeline where the team never even assembled. Peter might end up in a reality where he's alone, without mentors, and facing threats he isn't ready for. Tony, meanwhile, could find himself reliving his final battle over and over again, never learning from mistakes, and losing precious time to save lives. This uncontrolled time wouldn't be limited to just Earth. Across the multiverse, timelines could collide. Alternate versions of Loki, Scarlet Witch, or even Doctor Strange himself could start intersecting. Strange could face versions of himself who made different choices, some more dangerous than the threats he's already fought. In essence, he'd be fighting not just enemies, but the very fabric of reality. Here's an interesting fact. Time in the MCU isn't just linear, it's elastic. It can bend, stretch, or collapse entirely. So if Strange loses control, even something as small as a conversation in the past could cascade into catastrophic events in the present. A single misstep could erase entire cities, change key outcomes in battles, or even prevent heroes from ever meeting. And then there's the psychological toll. Doctor Strange isn't just fighting external threats, he's battling an endless loop of timelines, each more distorted than the last. Seeing events replay, people suffering repeatedly, or mistakes being repeated over and over could push him to the brink. This isn't just a physical challenge, it's a mental one. The Sorcerer Supreme's wisdom and patience would be tested like never before, and failure could mean the collapse of everything he's sworn to protect. But even in this chaos, Strange might find ways to exploit the instability. Uncontrolled time could allow him to glimpse alternate outcomes, see consequences before they happen, or even manipulate small events to buy himself time. The danger is immense, but it also opens a world of possibilities. He can survive the consequences of a universe out of sync. Now that time is spiraling out of Strange's control. Let's explore what could actually happen in the MCU. The consequences would be dramatic, both on Earth and across the multiverse. First, imagine something seemingly small, a car accident in New York. Normally, it's just a brief event, but with time unraveling, That accident could repeat itself endlessly, or happen in multiple locations simultaneously. A single moment could trigger a chain reaction affecting millions. Suddenly, the Avengers aren't just fighting villains, they're retrying to save ordinary lives from events that loop endlessly, creating confusion and panic on a global scale. Next, consider the multiverse. Time mismanagement could create overlapping realities. Think about Loki's TVA, they manage timelines carefully to prevent chaos. Without Strange's control, multiple versions of the same person could appear in one timeline. What if multiple Doctor Stranges existed in the same reality, each with slightly different powers or moral choices? Some versions might try to fix the problem, while others could exploit it for their own agendas. This opens up terrifying possibilities: heroes fighting heroes, alliances fracturing, and enemies gaining advantages nobody anticipated. Here's an example for engagement. Scarlet Witch's powers are tied to chaos and reality manipulation. In a timeline where Strange's control fails, Wanda could unintentionally or even intentionally amplify the effects. She might see visions of alternate outcomes and try to correct them, only to make things worse. Cities could vanish, timelines collapse, and reality itself could begin to flicker like a broken hologram. Even the smallest choices become dangerous. If Peter Parker swings too early, a villain might escape. If Thor strikes in the wrong moment, an ally could be harmed. Each decision is amplified because time itself no longer follows the natural order. Essentially, the universe becomes a giant, unstable chessboard where every move carries unpredictable consequences. And yet, amid this chaos, there's an eerie opportunity. Strange could, theoretically, find a timeline where everything goes perfectly. He could glimpse ideal outcomes before making decisions, but only if he survives long enough to process them. The risk is monumental: one mistake, and he could erase entire realities, or trap himself in a loop where no outcome is correct. This uncontrolled time scenario isn't just about physical destruction, it's a psychological thriller. Every action, every choice, every spell could lead to unintended consequences. Doctor Strange would need to navigate through fractured realities, battle versions of himself, and confront the terrifying truth: sometimes the more power you have, the greater the risk of total failure. So, Doctor Strange is trapped in this chaotic maelstrom of fractured timelines, looping events, and overlapping realities. The question now becomes, how could he possibly regain control, and what would be the cost? First, let's consider his options. In previous films, Strange has used the Eye of Agamotto, the Time Stone, and his mastery of the mystic arts to manipulate time carefully. But in this scenario, every spell he casts risks worsening the problem. He can't simply rewind or fast-forward events without unpredictable side effects. One solution could be collaborating with other powerful beings: Wang, the Scarlet Witch, or even alternate versions of himself from the multiverse. Each would bring knowledge, strength, or unique abilities to help stabilize reality. But here's the catch: teamwork isn't guaranteed to succeed. Alternate strangers might have conflicting goals. Wanda, with her reality-altering powers, could unintentionally make things worse. And the Avengers, they could get caught in loops, fighting battles over and over without understanding why. Every attempt to fix the timeline introduces new variables, raising the stakes with every decision. Some of the most terrifying consequences would be permanent changes to the MCU. Cities might vanish, characters could cease to exist, or history could rewrite itself in unpredictable ways. Imagine a timeline where Tony Stark never becomes Iron Man, or Steve Rogers never takes up the mantle of Captain America. Even small deviations could completely alter the course of the universe. Yet, amid all this chaos, there's room for hope. Strange's brilliance lies in his ability to think beyond conventional limits. By observing patterns in the disrupted timelines, he might identify a single stabilizing point, an event or moment that, if corrected, could realign reality. It's a delicate balance, requiring him to risk everything he's ever fought to protect. And finally, the psychological impact cannot be ignored. Facing endless loops, potential erasures of friends and allies, and the constant threat of collapse would push Strange to his absolute limits. The scenario forces him to confront not just the fragility of time, but the moral weight of controlling it. Power comes with consequences, and losing control reveals just how thin the line between mastery and disaster really is. Ultimately, regaining control would likely involve a combination of sacrifice, ingenuity, and sheer determination. Strange might have to accept that some events can't be corrected, or that certain realities must be allowed to collapse to preserve the greater whole. The lesson here is profound. Even the most powerful heroes are bound by rules they may not fully understand, and time is one force that refuses to be fully tamed. So, what if Doctor Strange lost control of time? Reality would unravel, timelines would clash, and even the mightiest heroes could find themselves powerless. It's a chilling reminder of how intertwined power, responsibility, and consequence are in the MCU. Strange's journey through chaos would test not only his abilities but also his wisdom and resilience. Ultimately, this scenario shows us that even the most extraordinary heroes are vulnerable when the very rules of reality slip from their grasp.